Committee members had enough time to park and get here, so I think we're close. So we're going to go ahead and get started since we have a lot to cover today. So I'd like to welcome all of our committee members once again to the Funding Review Advisory Committee. Thank you for joining and appreciate your continued work. We will have a brief session, as we have in the last few meetings, next door as soon as we are done here later this morning. So this morning's meeting is focused on the travel and tourism sector, an essential driver of our region's economy. One of the things we want to make sure that we talk about today is that we understand what the sector does in terms of generating significant economic impact, but also supporting jobs, tourism attraction, and strengthening our community's reputation as a destination of choice. Understanding the opportunities and challenges that face this sector is critical. Tourism has wide-ranging impacts and plays a key role in advancing quality of life for residents and competitiveness for our region. Today, we are fortunate to be joined by community leaders who represent organizations at the forefront of this work. I'd like to introduce our presenters today. We have Brian Ross, Executive Director of Experience Columbus, Sarah Towns, Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer for Experience Columbus, Linda Logan, Executive Director of Greater Columbus Sports Commission. Ken Paul, there's Ken over here. Where are you, Ken? Ken Paul, Executive Director of Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority. And it looks like we have Keith Martinez with us as well today from Plant Moran. Thank you for being here and for sharing your time and expertise. I'm going to go ahead and turn things over here to Brian, Sarah, and Linda. They're going to provide an overview of the role of destination marketing, visitor attraction, and sports tourism, and how they play as a driver in growth and community impact in our region. Following their presentation, we will have time for the committee members to ask any questions you may have and engage in discussion. Given our limited time together this morning, please do keep your questions focused and concise. With that, I will turn it over to you, Brian, Sarah, and Linda. The floor is yours, and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Can you hear me? I don't want to try to push up. I didn't know the lights were going to be so bright. Holy moly. This is like the committee that it's national. So anyhow, hello, everyone. I'm Brian Ross, President and CEO of Experience Columbus. Thank you to all the FRAC members for your expertise and leadership during this vital time for our community. I also want to start by acknowledging all the other organizations who have made compelling presentations in the recent months. We are very thankful and recognize the great work of the Greater Columbus Arts Council, Community Shelter Board, the Affordable Housing Trust, and all of our human service organizations. As you'll see, and as we go through our presentation, the work we do generates essential revenue that enables all these organizations to do their critical work. We're excited to be presenting today in partnership with Ken Paul and the the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority as we continue to strengthen our alignment. Before we begin our presentation, I'll make a few introductions. Joining me today, as you heard, is Linda Logan, President and CEO of the Greater Columbus Sports Commission, an LLC of Experience Columbus with shared services. Sarah Towns, Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer for Experience Columbus and the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. And Keith Martinez, Managing Partner of the Plant Moran Columbus office and our financial partner. We also have in the room two of our nationally renowned industry research experts, Adam Sachs, President of Tourism Economics, and George Zimmerman, Chair of Longwoods International USA, who provided much of the data that we'll see today. In addition to providing us with analytics, they are research partners for the state of Ohio and nearly 500 destinations around the country and world. I'd also like to recognize Doug Kreidler, President and CEO of the Columbus Foundation and our board chair. We appreciate his ongoing leadership. And thank you to all the travel and tourism partners, board members, city and county leaders, and community stakeholders who have joined us here today and are watching online. For those of you who don't know, Experience Columbus is the destination revenue driver and marketing engine for the Columbus region. We help drive the travel economy, which provides essential revenue that comes from outside our community and stays in our community. We partner with the Greater Columbus Sports Commission to collaboratively promote leisure trips, conventions, meetings, and sporting events to visitors who make an estimated 53.2 million trips to Greater Columbus each year. Alongside partners like the City of Columbus, Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority, One Columbus, Downtown Columbus, Inc., our sports teams, and all of our hotel partners, attractions, dining and retail partners, and arts organizations, we are building a thriving, connected Columbus where visitors, businesses, and residents prosper together. The work we do directly impacts our community in three key ways. First is the image and brand of Columbus. We are tasked with promoting and marketing Greater Columbus as a desired destination outside of our region. We do this through bringing in national and international conventions and sporting events, through our paid advertising campaigns, by hosting national and international writers and content creators, and through our own channels like our website and social media accounts. The second is economic and human development. We drive essential new revenue that allows organizations and residents to prosper. And the third is quality of life for residents. A thriving travel economy means our city is a vibrant place to visit and live, leaving our residents with an immense sense of pride. It's no surprise to any of us in this room that our city has experienced unprecedented growth since the last FRAC discussion. We're now a city on the rise. But the only way we continue the momentum is if we keep fueling the work that is bringing in new revenue to our community. Travel and tourism is working. Our industry is growing to record highs. Our latest data from 2024 shows that visitors made 2 million more trips compared to the previous year, and 800,000 overnight trips, the largest increase in history. Those visitors directly spend $8.2 billion at local businesses, from hotels to restaurants, and from small businesses to attractions and more. The travel economy supports over 82,000 jobs. That's 1 in every 13 jobs in Columbus and Franklin County. Simply put, the travel economy is a smart investment. For every $1 invested in Experience Columbus, we see $14 return to the community. And if we invest more, we will return much more. This isn't money that's just circulating around our community. The key stat is 90% of the $8.2 billion is new money from 50 miles or more outside of our community, flowing into Columbus, fueling our community economy, and providing additional resources for our critical community priorities. And that visitor spending doesn't just support the retailers and restaurants. It helps every single household in Franklin County, saving each household on average $1,500 per year in taxes. That means more money in families' pockets for crucial everyday expenses. In 2024, bed tax collections brought in nearly $60 million, a 64% increase since 2013. The travel economy impact is about more than visitors. It's about the Columbus we all want to live in, a city that's vibrant, that's inclusive and welcoming, that provides opportunity and prosperity. Despite the growth of our sector and the incredible record-breaking numbers, we're now at a turning point. The reality is that cities don't stay in motion by accident. They either grow or they get left behind. As you'll learn in today's presentation, we're at risk of losing the momentum that we've been building for years because we don't have a sustainable, competitive budget. Charlotte, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Indianapolis, Kansas City, Louisville, Milwaukee, Nashville, Pittsburgh, and St. Louis. We are competing daily to win conventions, trade shows, sporting events, and increase total visitor market share from our competitive cities. Our customers determine our competitive cities. We do not. The vast majority of these cities in our competitive set are receiving the same business opportunities we are. It's a very, very competitive industry. Columbus isn't the only city with big aspirations to reach more people with their message. Our competitors are already outspending us, investing in their stories, their destinations, and their economic future. If we don't act, they will continue pulling ahead, and we will lose conventions, sporting events, and visitors. The reality is we are falling behind because we don't have a sustainable, competitive budget. Reliable resources are a key consideration in planning for the future. In our current budget model, outside of the bed tax, the majority of the funding comes from county and city discretionary dollars, which we receive annually, as well as private partnership revenues from over 735 members. In 2024, Experience Columbus's total budget was 7th out of 11 cities. For comparison, here's a look at the total budgets of our competitive set from before the last FRAC. In 15 years, we have moved up one spot from 8th to 7th. Cleveland has moved from 9th to 3rd. When looking at the percentages of the bed tax, the destination marketing organizations in our competitive set receive, on average, 40% of the bed tax. On the screen, you'll see the breakdown. Indianapolis and Milwaukee receive 100% of the bed tax for tourism-related assets, including their destination marketing organizations. Charlotte receives 65%. Our competitors within the state, Cleveland receives 39%, and Cincinnati receives 26%. Experience Columbus receives 21% of the bed tax. We're in last in our competitive set, the lowest percentage. And from that 21% allocation in 2024, we invested 7% into the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. Given that insight into how our competitive set is funded and the percentage of the bed tax they receive, here's a snapshot of the 2024 bed tax distribution for the city of Columbus. As a result of the last FRAC, Experience Columbus received 24% of the bed tax. But you'll see how that has changed to 21% in 2024. That decrease is the result of the new and much-needed Hilton Columbus Downtown Tower, which our industry advocated for in order for us to secure larger, high-profile conventions. The agreement for them to retain the bed tax that they generate for debt purposes resulted in adjusted bed tax distribution. We anticipate that the distribution will continue to decrease once the Merchant Hotel opens, as they will also retain the bed tax they generate for debt purposes. Again, these are assets we needed to compete nationally. They do, however, decrease the overall bed tax distribution. In addition to the bed tax investment, many other destinations also receive funding from tourism improvement districts, known as TIDs. Hotels assess their guests a percentage of the rate to fund their TIDs. There are more than 209 of them nationwide, spanning 22 states, and we do not currently have one in Columbus or the state of Ohio. Austin is forecasting $30 million annually with their new TID. Minneapolis is forecasting $6 million annually. Louisville collected an estimated $8 million in 2024 from their TID. And Baltimore collected an estimated $6 million in 2024. Again, this is in addition to their bed tax distribution. Experience Columbus has been working with Destination Cleveland, lobbyists, and state legislators to create permissive language to allow the formation of a TID in Ohio, but we have significant hurdles in its creation. Also, the amount that would come from a TID would not get us to a competitive investment alone, but we are exploring every option possible to find new revenue streams to invest in our travel economy. Also, many of these other destinations are substantially supported by their state tourism organizations. Across the U.S., states are increasing their funding for tourism, recognizing the ROI. On the screen, you'll see what other competitive states invest in tourism. Ohio currently invests $11 million, which is up from $7.5 million, the lowest in our surrounding states. The lack of investment from the state only exacerbates our need to market and increase awareness to improve perception. This absence of competitive funding has led our board to make strategic and difficult decisions in recent years. In your handouts, you will see our income statements from 2018 through 2025. Over the last 3 years, we have worked with a budget deficit totaling $1.6 million. We've done this to remain competitive. We are doing everything we can to optimize the dollars we have. But as we all know, with inflation, it takes more money to do the same work. And we cannot continue to operate from a deficit. There would be a significant impact to our organization in 2026 without additional investment. The result would make Columbus less competitive and decrease growth of the travel economy, which would hurt all of Columbus. Now that you know the vital moment we're at, we want to share the results we've had with the investment received as a result of the last FRAC. For that, I'll turn it over to Linda Logan and Sarah Towns. Linda?
Thank you, Brian. I'm so happy to be here with everyone. On the screen, you will see data with increases across all key metrics over a decade. This represents the most recent economic impact data that we have, as we only get that research done every other year. Over a decade, Columbus and Franklin County saw a 43% increase in direct visitor spending, with more than $8.2 billion coming into the community in 2023. Wages have increased 83%, jobs have increased 10%, and we have seen a 47% increase in local tax revenue. These huge gains are despite the pandemic, which was devastating not only to our industry but to all of us, and has taken us years to recover from. These metrics also show that we delivered significant results since the last FRAC, and I know that we will do that again. As a community, we have had many major wins since the last FRAC, some of which you'll see on the screen. Many of these would not have been possible without community support. We are grateful for all the public-private partnerships that made these happen, including many of you who have helped champion these events at your organizations. Last year, we hosted the African Methodist Episcopal Church, known as AME, which was the largest convention in our city's history. And in 2023, the U.S. Conference of Mayors helped elevate our community's profile. It's important to know these major events don't just happen. It takes years of relationship building, bidding on the business, hosting planners and association leaders to convince them to choose Columbus. But most of all, our biggest challenge is overcoming Columbus's lack of perception, which is directly related to our low budget and the inability to market Columbus beyond 250 miles, which we'll talk about later in this presentation. You will see on the screen the direct visitor spending that resulted from each event. They have had a huge impact on our local community and our economy, and many conventions and sporting events have also had charitable components that support local nonprofits. Looking back a bit further, in 2019, we hosted the American Society of Association Executives, or ASAE. This is the world's largest annual educational and networking conference for the association profession, and it's often referred to as the Super Bowl of association meetings. You'll see a case study at each of your seats with more information about how this monumental event occurred and the long-term return on investment. We competed against Anaheim, Chicago, Dallas, Indianapolis, New Orleans, and Las Vegas for this event. When it comes to winning conventions like this, many other cities often have compelling incentives. Experience Columbus raised $3.6 million from private and public sources, including many of the businesses and organizations in this room, to make hosting ASAE in 2019 possible. The results of an event like ASAE are long-lasting. 81% of the attendees had never held a meeting in Columbus. As a result of hosting ASAE in 2019 and PCMA in 2023, we have had group commitments totaling $250 million in economic impact to date and currently have another $200 million in the pipeline. As ASAE loved Columbus so much, they recently announced that they'll be returning in 2030. On the sports side, 2024 was the biggest year in the history of the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. On the screen, you'll see many of the sporting events highlighted since the last FRAC, including the U.S. Figure Skating Championships, which we hosted last year. The event had the highest attendance since 2018, which was an Olympic year. And last July's MLS All-Star Game was attended by over 20,000 fans and brought in $20 million in direct spending to Columbus. In the fall, we announced several major wins, including the NCAA Women's Final Four, which will return to Columbus in 2027. We first hosted that event in 2018. Included in your handouts is a case study about the ROI of this event. Like ASAE, this event did not just happen overnight. We began bidding for it 10 years earlier. Other cities we competed against to secure the event included Dallas, Houston, Nashville, New Orleans, Pittsburgh, and Tampa. Like ASAE, we had to raise additional funds, in this case $2.6 million, to attract and secure the event for Columbus. In addition to bringing in an estimated $22 million in direct visitor spending for 2018, hosting the event put Columbus on the national spotlight and established the city as a host for major events, especially women's sports. And we are very excited to be partnering with Mayor Ginther and First Lady Shannon Ginther in the new initiative for Columbus to emerge as the nation's capital for women's sports. As you can see from these events, we were already making great headway in that area, and through the new initiative, we will find even greater success in the future. Finally, as a result of hosting the 2018 Women's Final Four so successfully, and we showcase what Columbus could do as a destination, we have not only secured that to come back in 2027, but also will be hosting the NCAA Women's Volleyball Championships that same year and the NCAA Men's Basketball Tournament first and second rounds in 2028. Next up, Sarah.
Thank you, Linda. As part of Experience Columbus's marketing efforts, we have been very persistent and worked hard to secure major accolades and national headlines for Columbus since the last FRAC. We are competing daily with other cities to host influential travel writers and to secure desk-side meetings in major media markets like New York, which our team visits annually to pitch Columbus. The headlines you see on the screen don't just happen. Similar to the high-profile events we host, it takes long-term relationship building with editors and writers, proactive pitching, and hosting them in our city. Accolades like being named a Where to Go in 2025 destination by Afar and a Top 10 Best Big City by Condé Nast Traveler are the result of years of work. These third-party endorsements elevate our destination and help drive visitation and awareness. They also secure meetings, conventions, and sporting events, and help businesses recruit top talent to live and work here. Now I'd like to share more about the moment we're in and the opportunity we have as a community. We all know it's an exciting time for Columbus, but it's also a pivotal one. The city's population continues to grow. Our airport is undergoing a major transformation and paving the way for our future. And the business momentum and growth has been remarkable as companies like Intel, Anduril, Honda, and more continue to choose the Columbus region. But we face the risk of lagging behind other cities in our comp set and losing the growth of visitation we've worked so hard to achieve. Our challenge currently is to generate familiarity with Columbus. In 2023, we worked with research partners, Smari Insights, to conduct a community-wide perception study to better understand how key audiences, including residents, visitors, and meeting planners, perceive Columbus. The study was the first of its kind since 2017 and was a community-wide effort with key organizations including the City of Columbus, Franklin County, One Columbus, and Downtown Columbus, Inc. The survey revealed that there's not a negative perception of Columbus, which is a really good thing. but there is a lack of perception. Familiarity with Columbus is low outside of Ohio. Those who know Columbus are positive, but consumers repeatedly indicated they need to see more marketing and communications about our city. The good news is that Columbus has improved familiarity and image compared to our 2017 research. Here on this slide, you can see familiarity by distance. This map doesn't show a lack of interest in our destination, it shows a lack of exposure. Outside of Ohio, awareness drops sharply, not because we aren't a great destination, but because people simply haven't seen us. Outside of Ohio, awareness drops sharply, not because, our budget doesn't allow us to consistently market Columbus beyond a 250-mile radius. That means whole regions full of potential visitors never get the chance to discover what we offer. Only 44% of those within Ohio are very familiar. At 250 miles, that drops to only 16%. And up to 500 miles, it's a mere 13%. But the dollars we are putting toward paid advertising are working. For every $1 invested in paid media, $32 in hotel revenue was generated in 6 months from January to June 2025, and that is through direct booking data. And according to our attribution partner, Arrivalist, those exposed to Experience Columbus's paid media campaigns in 2024 were 39% more likely to make a trip. With greater investment, we can see even greater returns and unlock entirely new markets. One very positive result from our perception study is that residents do support tourism. 92% of Columbus residents said that tourism benefits the area, and 89% think more tourism is a good thing. 78% of residents see that tax revenue from tourism helps pay for community services. And now I'll turn it back over to Brian.
Thank you, Sarah. Now that we know the challenge we face and the competitive disadvantage we're experiencing, let's look at the opportunity that we have. The work we do goes beyond visitors. It has a direct impact on so many community priorities. In our industry, we call it the halo effect. Longwoods International pioneered the groundbreaking research that measures the impact of tourism marketing and visitation on a destination's image across major economic development indicators. Studies show that tourism advertising not only attracts visitors and revenue, but also enhances the destination's image for residency, employment, investment, entrepreneurship, and education. Longwoods conducted research about the impact of Experience Columbus's advertising campaigns to positively influence consumers' perceptions of Columbus as a desirable place for leisure travel, living, and business opportunities. For visitors who both saw Experience Columbus's ads and visited the city, desirability more than doubled. The blue column represents those who saw ads and visited during the past 2 years, compared to the green column that shows no ad exposure and no visitation. This demonstrates Experience Columbus's marketing is effective. We're just too limited with who we can reach with the dollars that we have. This is why we're asking for an increase of $15 million per year. So how will we utilize this additional annual investment? 80% will be directed to an aggressive sales and marketing campaign, which includes $8.4 million for marketing, $2.8 million in direct sales and service initiatives, and $800,000 to support the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. On the screen, you'll see some of our immediate priorities by department. So what's the potential impact of an increased investment? Tourism Economics projects that with a $15 million per year investment, we will deliver an additional $2 billion in direct visitor spending by 2030, an additional $98 million in city and county revenue, 2,500 more jobs, and $483 million in additional household income. We shared our ROI earlier. Currently, for every $1 invested in Experience Columbus, $14 are returned to the community. With an additional $15 million per year investment from 2026 to 2030, we could see a $25 return for every $1 invested. As we conclude, I hope to leave you with these 3 key takeaways about the local travel economy. Experience Columbus has a proven ROI that could grow from the current $14 to $25 per $1 invested if we receive an additional $15 million per year. The travel economy brings in new money from outside our community that stays here and benefits our community. The work we do has long-term impact, both in terms of the local economy and quality of life for residents and visitors alike. Columbus isn't waiting for growth. We're creating it. And now we have the chance to accelerate it and bring in more resources to support the critical needs of our community. This is more than an investment in the travel economy. It's an investment that strengthens our economy, our identity, and our future. Thank you for your time. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate everybody's presentation. Committee, we have about 13 to 15 minutes, so if you have questions, let's go ahead and get through them. Jason?
One thing that I thought I heard, it was this one. Anyway, one thing I thought I heard, and I just want to make sure I understand it right, make sure I understand it. You've got an ROI today, which I think you said was like
14.
or something like that. In the scalar with the increased investment goes, if I know it's right, 25 to 1. What causes that, or how are we calculating that? Because that's a big jump in ROI.
Yeah.
I just want to make sure I understand that.
Thank you, great question. And I'm going to give that to Adam Sachs, Tourism Economics, who created that number.
Thanks. There are 2 parts to the question if I break it down. The first is how do you even begin to calculate an ROI on destination marketing? We look individually at sales activities, so the returns on bringing in a group. What do they spend and what does that generate in economic impact? And then the second channel is marketing and all the branding, leisure marketing, and then the impact of those. Those are measured independently. So with group sales, we are tracking how many delegates come and what they spend and what the organizers and the exhibitors spend. So that's fairly straightforward. On the visitors, on the leisure side, we're tracking, it's about as creepy as it sounds. We actually track cell phones and other devices that are exposed to ads and then show up in the destination. And we net out those that would have shown up independently. So that's how we measure it over time. Why is it higher if you increase funding? It's simply because it's an incredibly scalable activity, right? Destination marketing. You've got infrastructure with Experience Columbus, which you're leveraging more. You don't need another Brian or Sarah or Linda. And you have a great website, you've got a sales team. All of that becomes more productive as you increase funding that gets put to work without having to increase overhead or add infrastructure that already exists.
I just want to follow up real quick on the financials piece. So on the slide where it talks about that increase, that if there's $15 million more invested annually, that by 2030 we would be looking at, I think it was $98 million increase in tax revenue, additional $2 billion in spend. I guess my question is how quickly can that return be actualized, right? So if it is, let's just say it was $15 million additional to next year to Experience Columbus, is it accurate that by 2030 we'd actually see those results? And can you maybe shed some light on how quickly that can happen?
There's certainly going to be a ramp up to put that money to work. Those headline numbers are cumulative. Those are cumulative period of 10 years. So you get to, I think with our analysis, you get to sort of a stabilized returns within 3 years. And then you get, the benefits of added spending on top of that. So those numbers, once you get to that, I think it's 2033, right? That's going to be the cumulative over the period of time.
I'd like to add, that only happens, and I think what you were saying is if that $15 million is spent each one of those years, not total, and not just next year, but that investment has to happen on an annual basis.
Thank you all for the presentation. I'm really interested, intrigued by the HALO study and what is the perception of what folks think Columbus is a good place. And I think we're talking about tourism from a visit standpoint, but I'm interested, is there any correlation to either talent retention, talent attraction? I think particularly when we talk about large-scale employers that are moving here, one of the things that I hear a lot in the economic development space is finding top talent. So is there a correlation between not just coming to visit the city, but it looks as if folks want to choose Columbus, right, long-term, and what does that investment do? Is that directly with this additional investment in marketing help to get there? I'm just curious on that.
Yeah, so we started doing the halo effect research because we had so many clients who were seeing other results of their tourism marketing. I mean, obviously their kind of main objective is to attract visitors and their money and get them to pay local businesses with their visit and pay taxes and all that. But we also started investigating because our clients wanted to know what else is happening in our community because of tourism, besides the obvious, besides attracting either convention delegates or leisure visitors. And so that's when we started doing this research to look at, well, so what happens on the image side for a destination for a city like Columbus because of that tourism marketing? And when you saw the chart that was in the deck, you see that the people who saw advertising by Experience Columbus and came and visited have a dramatically better image of Columbus for everything, not just as a place to visit. And in fact, many of our clients now, especially cities, have kind of adopted the motto, it starts with a visit. And that is, when you're thinking about talent attraction, Brian and everyone talked about how little is known about Columbus as you move further and further out. It's not a bad reputation, it's just not a known reputation. But you get those people to come here as a leisure visitor first, and all of a sudden they have a much better impression of the state and are starting to think to themselves, and I think that's what the data shows in that chart, I might like to live here. This place is happening. As a former Columbus resident, what's happened over the last couple of decades is amazing. And, but they're not going to know that without coming here. And I think the research clearly shows that there is a lack of image awareness for this city all over the region.
Thank you all so much. So one of the things that you've all hinted at and talked about is this perception issue. Is there an example of a city that has done this well? Because changing the perception is not simple, and I would argue that whether it's 15 million more a year or whatever is actually a drop in the bucket if we really want the goal over the next decade to be this increased awareness, visibility, and tourism.
I'm going to turn that over to George because he has intimate knowledge of this. He was the architect of Pier Michigan.
Which may or may not be a plus here, but. So I think that, we certainly see destinations, on the city level, certainly cities have achieved kind of buzz, right? Who's a hot city? Is it, you talk about an Austin or a Nashville or whatever. And that's a combination of things. But I think the data shows that with Columbus, it's not a product issue. You now have a great product, but people are not exposed to it. They don't know about it. And so, and then in the end, marketing works, right? I mean, that's what the data shows as well. And I think that, so there are many cities who have improved their image through marketing, absolutely. But I think that, the main thing is look at your own data, your own research as far as the change in impression of the city between people who visited and saw ads and people in the same market somewhere else who don't know much about you. And the jump is dramatic. And I think that when we see the kind of jump that you have in your numbers, to me as a marketer, that says two words: marketing opportunity, right? You've got the product, you've got to get them here to experience it, and then they'll not only be a happy visitor and go home and tell everybody what a great trip they have, but some of them will also start thinking, I could live there, I could work there, I could start a business there. It's a cool, you know what you have going on here, it's a cool place. You just got to let people experience it.
And I'll add on to that just with some of the data that we were able to get with Samari, just from a meeting planner standpoint. So the more than 5 years from now, Columbus's favorability was 8th out of the 9 cities, okay? Within the past 5 years, which we've had more people come into our community, we were second to only Nashville in percentage growth. So again, it comes back to exposure and getting people here. I think every one of us in this room have had somebody come here and go, I never knew. I'd love to live here. Whether that's a family member, a business associate, whatever it may be, you always hear that, and we shouldn't be a hidden gem. Sorry.
Thank you so much, Chair. Hi, everyone. I just had a quick question. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about workforce characteristics. So, we talked about how 1 in 13 jobs here, I think was the number in the spreadsheet, are within this industry. Also, though, travel and tourism, a lot of seasonal work. It's a lot of temporary positions. So when we're thinking about return on investment, what do we know? Have we conducted any industry salary surveys? How many of these jobs are paying a livable wage of $20 an hour, providing benefits to people? What sort of information do we know about that?
Great question. I'm going to ask Adam to sort of talk about the full-time employees. But to my knowledge, outside of the data he has, we don't have wage data. But that's something we may be able to get.
Yeah, a few thoughts on the workforce. One is that one of the things that we've seen over the last decade of tracking this is that wages within leisure and hospitality sectors have grown much faster than the rest of the economy. And so we're seeing a lot of kind of closing the gap, particularly in what are career building jobs. We did a study a while back for the U.S. Travel Association that looked at the career arc of those that start within leisure and hospitality, and found that and it was a longitudinal study using government data, that we found over the course of careers that those that started in leisure and hospitality were made more money over time. That the building blocks of those jobs were really solid. One of the things that we're also tracking is the breakout of how many jobs are managerial versus support services. And so and it varies by sector of the visitor economy. So within restaurants, it does skew more toward lower income. But those are a lot of those are student jobs and really important jobs. One of the things I often, I'm talking to economic development groups a lot about, let's not disparage jobs that are important to the people that have them. And but what we're seeing in recreation and entertainment and hotels is a significant share of managerial as well as career growth opportunities.
You may have shared this already. You say that you need 15 million more, 80% going to marketing and to sales. I don't see it in your budget what your current marketing and sales budgets are. Could you let us know what that looks like now? Because it makes a difference as far as what it is, what it will be, to understand what you have utilized currently in your resources in order to market for the conventions that we have received thus far.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Current budget, so I'll include advertising, marketing, convention sales, which I think would be categorized as the big three. Advertising for 2025, 3.8 million. Marketing, 1.2 million. Convention sales, 1.7. So if you think about that additional 15 million and the significant portion that would be going to future investment in those areas, significant compared to where we currently are at.
Thank you.
I'm going to ask you one last final question before we switch here to Mr. Paul. So you can probably imagine the difficult work of this committee is not sitting and listening to the presentations because frankly, they're all fantastic and really appreciate the data. The difficult work is how we close gaps in every single sector. Everybody. And it's a near impossible task. So my genuine question to you is, obviously you've had to make some really hard decisions already. Do you have ideas around how to raise that $15 million? Yep. Yep.
We believe that there are multiple ways to get to the $15 million. But what I will share is we believe we should be, like all of our competitors, we should live on the event tax, where they get the majority of their dollars. We would, that's the KPIs that we have, whether we do well or not do well. Dollars go up or down, but that's what we directly affect. So to answer that from that standpoint, that's where we would like to be from. Again, when you look at our competitors, that's just the industry standard. So.
I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, thank you so much. We will make a switch here. And just so you know, when we convene as a committee later, sometimes we come back with additional questions. So it's possible we may do that. Just know that we will follow back up with you. Thank you for being here. And if we can switch and ask you to join us.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Mr. Paul. While they are making that switch, we're going to be hearing next from Ken Paul, who's the Executive Director of the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority. Ken is going to be sharing insights into the operations and economic contributions of the county's convention facilities, including the Greater Columbus Convention Center and how these venues support the travel and tourism sector as a whole. After Ken's presentation, again, we'll have an opportunity for questions, and then we will convene next door. Wow, just you, Ken. Everybody left you. Okay, I'd ask that everyone please turn their attention to Mr. Paul so he can make his presentation.
Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I want to begin by recognizing the time and energy you've devoted to this process. Your work's critically important and truly appreciated. Being here today has some personal meaning for me. As some of you know, I spent 17 years working for the city of Columbus, many of those years for Columbus City Council, which meant spending most every Monday night right here in these chambers. During that time, I also helped stand up the very first Funding Review Advisory Committee some 13 years ago. So if you don't like the name FRAC, you can blame me. I know firsthand the challenges of the work before you, and that's why I'm especially grateful for your service and for your thoughtful approach in leading this effort, so thank you. I am here today on behalf of the Franklin County Convention Facilities Authority, or CFA, to provide an overview of our mission, the assets we steward, the funding challenges we faced, and why reinvestment is critical to keep Columbus competitive. Our mission is anchored in three priorities: financial stewardship, operational excellence, and strategic development. We're an independent entity under the Ohio Revised Code, but we operate much like a private enterprise: disciplined, lean, and results-driven. Everything we do is about ensuring our facilities not only support the travel economy, but our community. The CFA manages over $1.1 billion of outstanding obligations tied to some of Columbus's most important public assets. That includes the Greater Columbus Convention Center, Hilton Columbus Downtown, Nationwide Arena, and 6 parking facilities. These assets are the backbone of Columbus's travel and tourism economy. But they aren't just buildings, they're part of who we are as a community, stitched into the fabric of Columbus, connecting people, events, and opportunities. Our facilities are more than just convention halls or hotels. They are places where the world meets Columbus and where our community comes together. From weddings and graduations to concerts, conventions, and international competitions, our venues are the gathering places for life's most important moments. Starting with the Greater Columbus Convention Center, it's grown with our city. The South facility opened in 1980, the North in 1993, and in 2017, we completed a $140 million renovation and expansion. Today, the campus totals 1.8 million square feet with 447,000 square feet of exhibit space, the largest multi-purpose ballroom in Ohio, and 6 adjacent parking facilities with more than 4,700 spaces. In 2024 alone, the Convention Center hosted over 260 events and welcomed more than 780,000 visitors. To keep pace with ongoing maintenance, we're advancing a $100 million capital program, but our most recent facility assessment identified needs exceeding $250 million. I'll speak a little bit more about that in a minute. The good news is the center is strong and competitive, but staying that way will require ongoing and sustained reinvestment. Shifting to the Hilton Columbus Downtown, it's one of our greatest success stories. The first tower opened in 2012, the second in 2022, bringing the total number of guest rooms to 1,000, making it the largest hotel in Ohio. Directly connected to the convention center, that 1,000 rooms was critical to securing the largest conventions Columbus has ever hosted, ASAE, PCMA, and just last summer, AME Church. The hotel has been successful from day one. We navigated through and past COVID, and just 2 weekends ago, we logged back-to-back 100% sellouts. The hotel was financed through bonds backed by hotel revenue and the bed tax collected at the Hilton. It is operated sustainably, covering debt service, capital expenditures, and reserves, and we've begun to build a balance in the hotel residual fund. However, the residual fund is dedicated to paying outstanding obligations on Nationwide Arena. That means that while the Hilton is on the rise, beating expectations, it's not generating any excess funds that might otherwise fund future hotel projects. As we look ahead, Columbus will eventually need additional hotel inventory, new properties, new flags, to stay competitive with other cities. But right now, the funding to support those efforts simply doesn't exist. Shifting to Nationwide Arena. While you may not have realized it when you woke up this morning, we're all celebrating a milestone together. On this very day, September 9th, the year 2000, Nationwide Arena opened its doors and hosted its first concert, hosted by, or headlined by, anybody know? Tim McGraw and Faith Hill. Since then, it's grown to one of our region's most important venues and community assets, a 20,000-seat multi-purpose arena, and the cornerstone of the arena district. Today, the arena is more than just hockey. In fact, only about 30% of the activity in the arena are Blue Jackets games. The rest is concerts, family shows, and championship events that bring enormous economic benefit to our community and visitors together. Performers like Bruce Springsteen, Paul McCartney, and 21 Pilots, and sporting events like the NCAA Women's Final Four have filled the building and nearby hotels, including the Hilton Columbus Downtown, and supported businesses across our city. The arena is now 25 years old. Over the last decade plus, More than $80 million has been invested in maintenance and capital repairs, but we need to modernize the building to keep it competitive. The CFA has launched a $400 million renovation plan to ensure the building remains safe, accessible, and attractive to world-class events. Now, looking at how the CFA operates, one of the hallmarks is that we are a largely self-sustaining operation, managed by industry leaders like Legends Global, Hilton Worldwide, Levy, and Columbus Arena Management. This self-sustaining model has worked well, but as I'll share in a moment, it has limits, and future competitiveness will require new resources. We've talked a little bit today already about the bed tax. It's truly the cornerstone of our funding model. Since 1988, a 4% countywide tax and a 0.9% citywide tax has supported the convention center's debt service and capital program. The city also levies an additional 5.1 bed tax, proceeds dedicated to Experience Columbus, the Sports Commission, and other community priorities. The structure has allowed us to be responsible stewards of our facilities, but the tax rate itself has not changed since 1988, even as needs and competition have grown. Digging a little deeper into the flow of those resources and the use of the bed tax, how it not only supports the convention center, but the Hilton and Nationwide Arena. The Hilton was financed through bonds backed by hotel revenue and the bed tax collected at the property. Its first obligation is to be self-supporting, covering all debt service, management fees, reserves, and capital expenditures. Only after those obligations are met do any remaining funds flow into what we call the Hotel Residual Fund. Those dollars are then dedicated to repaying the loan that financed our acquisition of Nationwide Arena. So while the Hilton's primary role is to sustain itself, it's also working to pay down arena debt. For the arena's ongoing capital needs, we've also relied on casino tax revenues, and more recently, the city's admissions fee. Together, these sources have addressed capital maintenance and the replacement of systems as they near the end of their useful life. But the key point here is that while this structure has allowed us to manage debt and keep up with routine capital expenses, it is not nearly enough to fund the significant renovation and modernization now required for a 25-year-old building to keep it world-class. Shifting to talk about some of our other needs and risks. The bed tax has been tested repeatedly after 9/11, during the Great Recession, and most recently through COVID. We managed through those shocks by using reserves and deferring maintenance. Today, reserves have been replenished, and we have launched a $100 million capital campaign. The reality is that needs already exceed available resources. The GCC assessment, Facilities Condition Assessment, identified more than $250 million in required improvements. The Hilton cannot fund future hotel projects, and the arena requires $400 million in modernization. While our foundation is solid, without new resources, the system will be stretched too thin. Not only that, there's a shifting building business model. Convention center economics are shifting. Traditionally, centers like ours relied on rental fees and ancillary charges to cover costs. But competitor cities are increasingly treating their centers as loss leaders. They reduce or eliminate these charges to secure events, betting on the broader community benefit. Smart, forward-looking investment in parking facilities at the CFA have generated significant revenue to support the Columbus Convention Center. Frankly, without it, we would run a deficit every year. But in truth, we're an anomaly in the convention and meeting space. Even with parking to help cover operations, Columbus may have to adjust its model to remain competitive, and that means rethinking how we fund the convention center. We talked a little bit before about incentives and attracting business, and I mentioned that communities are discounting their facilities to secure business. But not only that, financial incentives are now a critical part of competing for high-impact conventions. Many of you have likely been solicited to participate in raising funds to secure high-profile conventions and sporting events. Likewise, the CFA and the hotel community sets aside funding and pools its resources to cover discounts and support incentives through the Business Development Fund. Without it, many major events simply wouldn't choose Columbus. The challenge is participation in the BDF is uneven, and it's heavily subsidized by the CFA, even though the benefits are shared across the industry. Incentives are essential today, and they will only become more important tomorrow. But the current model is not sustainable, and without a solution, the BDF will become insolvent. Facilities and marketing are two sides of the same coin. You heard from Experience Columbus, and you know marketing attracts visitors, which drives hotel demand and increases bed tax receipts. Those revenues allow us to reinvest in facilities. If marketing is underfunded, visitor demand falls. If we don't reinvest in facilities, we lose competitiveness. Facilities and marketing are interdependent, reinforcing priorities. Neither can succeed without the other. So while I sit here and make the case for new investment, it's important to note that the CFA is equally committed to maximizing existing resources. We have a long track record of financial discipline and have carefully executed complex financial strategies to optimize what we have. We've strategically developed facilities that keep Columbus competitive, including our hotel and parking facilities. And we own land that could support future development and advance community priorities like passenger rail and bus rapid transit. That is why we are launching a master plan to explore future facility development and community improvements that could also support new revenue opportunities. Our goal is always to advance our mission while ensuring long-term financial stability. Not only are we committed to facility development to help improve our competitive position and to drive revenue, but as an industry, we have demonstrated a willingness and a commitment to invest in our own success. We've mentioned the Business Development Fund, but Experience Columbus is also exploring a tourism improvement district, an approach that could create a more equitable and sustainable path to funding incentives and sustaining marketing efforts. The CFA has invested millions of dollars in direct support of Experience Columbus and the Greater Columbus Sports Commission, ranging from funding for specific events to sustained annual operating support. We're also the largest contributor to the Short North Special Improvement District. Just this year, when faced with cuts to the Summer Crime Interdiction Program, the CFA stepped up with a $250,000 investment to sustain the effort. And now, through the proposed Short North New Community Authority, we will be the largest investor in a new model where property owners will self-assess charges to fund facilities, clean and safe initiatives, and business development. These efforts demonstrate an industry not waiting for others to act, but committed to reinvestment, alignment, and building sustainable systems that strengthen the travel economy and secure Columbus's future growth. And while these industry-led efforts show how we are investing in our own future, the real strength comes when we best align those investments. Alignment with Experience Columbus is critical to our success. Not only does the CFA invest directly in Experience Columbus and the Sports Commission, but we're working to integrate our efforts, better collaborate, and develop strategies to advance our collective purpose. We're building a sales and marketing framework that isn't just focused on heads and beds, but the right book of business for our market that will help drive both rates and occupancy. We're exploring unified systems, eliminating redundancies, and identifying opportunities to co-invest. To guide this work, our boards are engaged, and a work group led by Franklin County is helping us determine the best model for Columbus. But whatever that final structure is, we know it will apply national best practices to create opportunities for greater alignment between our two organizations. Simply put, aligned efforts maximize community benefit. So my board member, Janika Pierce-Tucker, asked, what's the why and what's the ask? It leads to one central point. Keeping Columbus competitive requires reinvestment. Facilities and marketing are interdependent, and Columbus cannot compete without both. Aging facilities, rising expectations, and demand continuous improvement, and existing revenues are not sustainable. Competitor cities are investing more aggressively in facilities, marketing, and incentives. And while the industry itself is investing in itself, we cannot fund our shared priorities alone. This is why we're here, to make the case for reinvestment. Our ask is straightforward. First, protect and grow the bed tax. Second, reinvest in CFA facilities, specifically the Convention Center, the Hilton, and the Arena, to keep them world-class. Third, establish a sustainable, long-term solution for the Business Development Fund. Fourth, expand destination marketing investment through Experience Columbus, which delivers proven returns. And finally, I'm asking you to support the CFA as we plan for our future, and when we advance funding solutions to sustain operations and to ensure our facilities remain world-class. For more than 40 years, our community has invested in facilities that have positioned Columbus for success, advancing the travel economy as a tool to support a strong and prosperous region. We don't find ourselves here by accident or happenstance, but by intentional planning and investment. But competitiveness is not guaranteed. It requires reinvestment. To keep Columbus on the national stage, we must put the resources in place today to sustain our facilities and fuel future growth. And with that, wait, there's more. I feel like I'm repeating myself here, but I still think I'm on time, Sandy.
You're good, you're fine.
Columbus is competitive today because of past investments. The Convention Center, the Hilton, the Arena are critical community infrastructure. They create jobs, they support local businesses, and drive tax revenues that fund essential services. But future competitiveness depends on continued reinvestment. And we at the CFA are committed to financial stewardship, operational excellence, strategic development. We're equally committed to alignment and efficiency and self-investment. But what we're asking for is your partnership to protect and grow the bed tax, to support reinvestment, and to help us build sustainable funding models to ensure Columbus thrives for decades to come. Thank you so much. I'll take questions now. I'll point out if you want more details, including our finances on the two-pager we put together where we utilize every square inch of those 2 pieces of paper. There is a QR code, so you can click it on your phone and scroll through if you're tired of listening to me talk. Thank you, Sandy.
Yeah, that was pretty smart. I think you're the first one who's put a QR code on something, so that was pretty cool. I'm just going to start actually with a quick general question while the committee thinks about what they want to ask. It's a question I don't know if you'll be prepared to answer, and it's more of a maybe subjective, but I'm just curious, when we have potential conventions or organizations that think about coming to Columbus and don't, is there a general reason or trend that you see, or is it just too various to really see a pattern?
Yeah, I'm going to lean into Brian's presentation, and it gets down to perception. Our facilities today aren't the challenge. From a convention center standpoint, we're right about mid-level in terms of space and amenities in our comp set, but that's not the reason why we're losing business. It comes down to perception. Frankly, when we're able to get people in town and show them what we have to offer, those reservations subside, but getting them here is a real challenge.
And is the perception just that there isn't anything to do, or there aren't, what's the perception issue?
Yeah, it's flyover country. And okay. I think we've all been confronted with that, whether we're at the airport talking to someone from another community and they don't know much about where we're from. But then you start the sales pitch, I know I do, talking about how great our community is. And they say, okay, but it's not until they actually get here oftentimes that people realize not only is it a great place to live, to work, and to visit, but it's easy. We make it really easy on visitors who come to our community to have an incredible event. And when sports events comes to town, we hosted the best women's Final Four ever. And frankly, I'd like to think we're on the front end of women's sports. And that's a really exciting opportunity, but it's going to require reinvestment.
Okay, and then my last thing, and just in follow-up to that, is, are there often times then throughout the course of the year where there are a lot of gaps in what's scheduled at the convention center?
There are, and our focus at the convention center is really to figure out how to best utilize the space. We'll tell you, we're wrestling with the correct business model, which may actually mean fewer events, but more of the right events. So high yield business that actually increases visitor spending, that reduces stress on the building, allows us to come in and do maintenance, and that when we get those larger groups in, we're really able to maximize results. So it's not just about the number of events. And frankly, there are years where we have had more events than we did this year, but made less money. And frankly, in the business model, not to get too far into the weeds, some of those events, those larger events, which may be fewer and far between, but highly coveted, are the ones that really generate more revenue from food and beverage spend and actually putting people out into the community to spend money at area businesses.
Okay, thank you. Committee questions?
I have a question. Thank you, Paul. It was a wonderful presentation. My question really is about your alignment with Experience Columbus. You are looking at it from a back office standpoint, marketing and so forth. I know you have two separate boards, but is there also a consideration of you all merging or just being separate?
Well, merger is a dirty word in lots of rooms. It scares people. We're not there yet in the conversation, but I can tell you, Brian and I are working more closely together. Our teams are working more closely together than ever before, and it comes from the top down. That we are showing leadership to our teams to get our people in the same room, aligned, getting into the weeds, and knocking down barriers. Yeah, getting out of the business of having turf wars. And I will give our community some credit here. We're doing a lot better than most destinations. Brian's taken me on the road over the last couple of years. I've been in this job, and you talk to other communities where their facilities authority and their CVB are not aligned.
Okay.
We are in a much better starting position. I will tell you, the CFA is a pretty lean operation. I threw out a number of 1.1 billion of obligations, and that's a fancy way of saying debt, that backs some pretty significant assets. I mean, just for awareness, 400 million is also a big number for an arena, but building a new arena now is somewhere between 1.2 and 1.4 billion. And so that's a pretty hefty task. The entire CFA staff is here today. And I'll ask them to stand up and thank them if we're done with Q&A. It's 5 of us. There are 5 human beings out in this mass that support all of those operations. Incredibly proud of them. It's not a bloated bureaucratic entity. And Brian's team is right-sized for the tasks that they have on hand. There are some opportunities for efficiencies. I will say this is one of those situations where I don't think we're going to save our way to success.
Okay.
But there certainly are opportunities where we can drive alignment.
And when you're talking about, let's say, capital funds, particularly for the arena, what other resources and funding are you also considering?
Yeah, we're in a really strong position in the remainder of this year and into next. We'll be talking more about that capital stack that everyone talks about how you get to $400 million. It will need to be public and private reinvestment, just as it was to start. Good news is we're in a really strong position at the state. There are resources through the last state budget that are available to us to apply for. It's certainly not a given. We do not take it for granted, but we've worked very, very hard to build relationships at the State House to be in position to take advantage of those resources. That could be up to $100 million of the entire $400 million budget. Just the formula is up to 25% of the total project cost. Again, not guaranteed. There is a state senator in the building, and I do not want to take that for granted, and we will make the case. Additionally, there will be the need for the CFA to step up and issue additional debt. That's how we have invested in our other facilities. We issued $200 million in debt to be able to build the second Hilton. And so we will need to take on additional debt, and that will require new dedicated revenue streams. More to come on that, and that's not all figured out, but there'll be additional investment from the CFA. There'll be an ask from the city and the county from a cash perspective, but I'd venture to say probably smaller in scale than in more recent investments in sports solutions or saving movements, but still substantial, don't want to discount it. And all of that together would leverage private investment. And if you look at other capital stacks from similar projects around the country, it'll be proportionate to those public-private partnerships in other communities. San Jose is a real good example of a facility that's in a similar position with a similar refresh planned. It might be good for the committee to take a look at.
Thank you.
Sandy.
Thanks so much. This could have easily been a question for Experience Columbus too. I'm trying to get a sense of what you think the tolerance is in terms of the hotel motel bed tax. I know GCAC has talked about when they originally came in here, I think they were looking for 10%, and then the ticket tax is now at around 5% is what's in place. So maybe a good question for our legislative research team is there a cap on that at the state level if you're unaware? And then also, have you been looking at what the tolerance is, the market tolerance to increase that percentage to, any certain level to get us where we need to be to generate the revenue that's needed?
Yeah, I'll be real frank. Increasing the bed tax is like the third rail of convention and hotel politics in our sector. That said, and I think Brian and I are aligned on this, but I won't speak for him. That's why we're looking at things like the NCA. It's why we're looking at the Tourism Improvement District. Because those are opportunities where, on a voluntary basis, hotels and facilities can choose to self-assess charges, which are then passed on to the consumer. So the Short North NCA that's being proposed right now, and actually council has taken action to establish it. It's not quite done yet. We're negotiating what those development charges would look like, but baseline for start of the conversation is 1%. And so that would mean that a guest at the Hilton would pay 1% more than they would at other hotels. There are other hotel properties that I believe will participate in a large majority of the business owners in the Short North, whether that's a property owner that has a restaurant or a gallery, but there's large-scale participation. And what's that showing? That there is space in that market, at least, to charge a little more, to raise the revenue, to invest back into our product and to selling Columbus. That is not the entire market, and it will not generate enough resources to talk about what we're going after. But it does show some tolerance there to increase it, at least at certain properties.
As a follow-up to that, the plan that you're talking about now, do you have a sense of how much revenue that would generate?
I do not. This is an effort that is being led by the Short North Alliance. And so Betsy Pandora may be able to follow up with you to give you a better idea of what they expect to generate. We think that our contribution will be significant just from the Hilton, just as it is with the SID. We're the largest contributor to the SID. But it is, again, another example of a way that we can reinvest and where at least those properties at this point in time who are confident in our product and confident where we stand in the market, that we can afford that. In deference to other hoteliers, just to understand the economics of it, they stepped out and supported this community in investing in the Hilton, building that second tower. That created new supply. And just like in any other economic equation, when you increase supply, it has an impact on your ability to charge. And it can impact business for some other hoteliers, especially those that are further out in the community. And so making the case for an increased bed tax or a charge of any sort for a hotel that doesn't see the direct benefit from convention business, even if it's there, if they don't see it in the bottom line, it's a risk. And it is one of those reasons why the subject's a little dicey, why I'm careful in choosing my words.
Janelle?
I have one question for you. Ken, thank you so much for the information. When you talk about the supply, is it not working? When you talk about the supply of Columbus, do you know how that compares to how the supply has changed up or down with those competitive set cities to help us understand when we look at being last in marketing, as I think was like in one of the slides that Brian's team showed, in terms of overall marketing spend? Are we marketing more than our competitive set cities in terms of how the supply has changed over, say, the past 5 to 10 years?
Well, I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to answer the question, but you got to a simple point at the end oh my goodness, that I feel comfortable speaking to. So our supply has gone up and our marketing has not. And that also has an impact on rates. So if you look at average daily rate for a hotel room, which most people don't care about, but the reason why it matters in this context is it's not just about occupancy. So it's not just about the number of humans who are coming to our community and staying. It is about the rate that they are paying, because the bed tax is a percentage of the rate that you're charging. And so if you're able to drive rate and occupancy, you drive bed tax. And so the best way to do that is actually to bring more people in the door, which has an effect on raising rate, because when supply is more than demand, your rate is suppressed. So if you can meet the demand issue, or level out at least on supply versus demand, it then does give you an opportunity to raise rate. Key to that, though, is bringing more people. Additionally, I do want to note, Brian pointed it out, the bed tax at the Hilton stays with the Hilton. That'll be true for Merchant Tower as well. It hurts the bed tax receipts in terms of supporting marketing. It's absolutely necessary to be able to bring those properties to market. And to think that in the future, as we bring new hotels online, which we will, and if anyone's been to Nashville lately, we refer to them as Nash Vegas, and perhaps further ahead of us than we will ever get to, the reality is we will need to add new flags, new properties to be able to fulfill our destiny and get to where we're being. To think that those properties will be built without similar public support and reserving those resources is probably not realistic. And so it just underscores the importance of finding other ways to get revenue to support marketing, whether that's keeping more of the bed tax, or finding new revenue streams to support it.
Thank you.
Janelle?
Thank you, Sandy. Hopefully you can hear me, Ken. Hi, Ken.
Hi, Janelle.
So, Ken, you talked about in your presentation that how we fund the CFA as a community is an anomaly. Can you give an example or talk about, in a perfect world, how we should be funding our CFA? What that funding mix looks like or should look like?
That's it's an interesting conversation. I don't know that I would frame it as a perfect world. I just don't know. But there are examples from around the country that operate differently. Brian and I have talked about Indianapolis most recently, where all of the dollars flow to their convention facilities authority. And then it's the authority that determines where those dollars go. There are similar models that we're exploring. We travel to Charlotte, to Houston. There are others where there is true alignment between the CVB and the authority. They're a single organization. It was a journey in those communities. Houston and Charlotte took the better part of 10 years to get there. It was a little dicey along the way, but they're seeing some returns on that alignment. And it is, frankly, getting to a point where all the resources flow to one source and then collectively making decisions on how to best invest those dollars. I will tell you that comes with some opportunities, but some potential risks also, and some larger questions we as the community would have to contemplate. I mentioned before, a lot of communities treat their convention centers as loss leaders. In Charlotte in particular, it's a public authority. And so our charge at the CFA has been to pay our own bills. Don't come to mom and dad and ask for more cash. Run your business well and do your job. We've got other funding needs as a community. The reality is if it becomes a single entity, if it's a public entity, which under the revised code it would need to be, that comes with some additional obligations on the public side. And it would probably change how we operate, which means more public investment, not less. It's a really, really difficult conversation and a large one, and one we're starting right now. No simple answers. We're not there yet, but there is opportunity there. Sorry, it's a long non-answer, I feel like. Sorry, Janelle.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Can I just point out one thing that actually would respond to Councilmember Green's question from the prior session, and I think Ms. Shoemaker will be proud of also. Our industry sustains a lot of really good jobs. I don't want the narrative that these are just low-paying service industry jobs. They are pathways to careers that are family-sustaining and supportive. And I'm proud to say that the Hilton is the first union hotel in the city of Columbus. And our food service provider at the Convention Center, Levy, is right now in the midst of organizing. And that's not about, an agenda of pro-union or not. It is about pro-worker and pro-sustained wages that can sustain a family. And it's just an important point that I didn't want to go unnoticed or that I wanted to address. So thank you for your time.
Is that it? Okay, thank you for being here. I want to thank your colleagues, too, that are back here.
Yeah, guys, could you stand up? There is the entire CFA team. Thank you, guys.
When you walk back, you can ask why they didn't sit up there with you. Thank you very much for being here. We're going to just take a couple-minute break, and then we'll head next door to the committee. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time, everyone.